All right, guys. This will be what the quiz looks like tomorrow. Initially, I had thought I wasn't going to give you any steps, but I'm going to give you those steps. This is literally what the quiz will look like. I'll just change the problem. You need to factor to solve it over on the left. Use the quadratic formula to solve it as well in the middle, and then sketch a graph of that parabola on the right. Okay? So you've got your steps here for factoring to solve on the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's got your 4 steps. I would point out that for both step 1 on factoring and quadratic formula, you want to set that equation equal to 0. So take this original equation, set it equal to 0, and then I would throw away the original equation. And the new equation set equal to 0 is what you use from here on out. Okay? Walk down each of those. I'm going to have you pause it right now, work through factoring, and then you can unpause it, and I'll go through factoring with you. And you can pause it and do quadratic, unpause it, and I'll walk through that solution. And then I can explain sketching it. If you understand it from class today, great. If not, watch through. And we've got another problem after this. I'll do this twice for today's video. So go ahead and pause it and start factoring. Go. All right, if you're unpausing, we're going to look at it. I would cancel off that -6 with a +6, which I would do the same to this side, and 14 plus 6 is 20. So the actual equation I'm going to work with is -2x squared plus 6x plus 20. Now that I've got that, I would just ignore that equation and work from here on out with that equation we just made. Set equal to 0. Now we want to factor using a GCF. Pull out any common value I can. And it tells you right here, factor out whatever's in front of the x squared. We can see we need to pull out a -2 if possible. And then what's left we'd be able to use the trinomial factor method with. So let's try and pull out a -2. So we can do it from the x squared, divide out that -2. Then if we pull it out of the 6, that's going to become 3, and it's going to flip to negative. Pull it out of the 20, it's going to make it a 10, and it's going to flip its sign to negative. And so we've now factored out a GCF. Now we want to trinomial factor it. So we're going to ask ourselves, and did you guys notice the mistake I made? I forgot my x right here. There we go. We need to know what's going to add to a -3 and at the same time multiply to make a -10. And if there's 2 magic numbers that make that work, let's see. 2 obvious choices that come to mind for me are 2 and 5. Since it's a -10, one of them will have to be a negative, one a positive. And since they add to a -3, that tells me the bigger of the 2 factors has to be the negative to make that work out. So it's going to be a -5 and a +2. Can set each of these equal to 0. And yep, we've got a GCF. We should bring that down. But at this point, it really doesn't matter once we step forward to solving it. Since we're focusing on solving, that -2 on the front really isn't important. I just care about these 2 variables. So I'll flip the signs on each when I solve them, get x equals 5, x equals -2. Next step on the quadratic formula, we know that we will get that as our solution if we do it correct, and then we would use those 2 solutions as well to sketch our graph of the parabola at the end. Go ahead and pause it and do your quadratic formula solving. Go. All right, let's dive in here. We've got our A, our B, and our C. And again, we're going to pull them right out of this version right here. Once you get the equation solved for 0, that's what you want to use for your ABC. So A is that -2, B is the 6, and C is the +20, or +20. I don't know why I put a plus in front of it. Okay, let's go ahead and plug in. Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. I forgot my colors for the b, but it's there. All over 2 times the a. There you go. Let's simplify that radical there. 6 squared, 36. 2 negatives, when I multiply those 3 values together, is going to make a positive. So it's 4 times 2 times 20. So 8 times 20 is 160. Wow. 160 and 36 is 196. We got to know a square root 196. Well, we know it's going to come out to whole number answers. So we know that's a perfect square. So I would just kind of work through a little bit. 11 times 11 is 121. 12 squared, I know that equals 144. So we're kind of heading in the right direction. 13 squared, when I multiply, I think that's 169. 14 squared, I don't know, but I bet you that's 196. Let's see. Oh, 4 times 4 is 16. I did my math wrong. There you go, 196. So it's a 14 squared, and you guys, you're going to apply the same method tomorrow. If you're not sure what a perfect square is, start multiplying until you check and find your way up. So we found out that that's going to be a 14. So we've got negative 6 plus or minus. I'll go ahead and take the square root of the 196. It's 14. 2 times negative 2, negative 4. And so now you just split and solve. I'll do negative 6 plus 14. And negative 6 minus 14. And at this point, we already know what we're going to get. It's over there on the left. We just need to verify and show it to get our points. 14 and negative 6, 8. Over negative 4, there's my negative 2. Got it. And negative 20 divided by negative 4, negatives cancel, 5. And got it. They match up. I got the same solutions both ways. Let's take those and graph them for our last piece. Pause it now if you haven't yet sketched and you want to try it first. Otherwise, I'll show you right now. Okay, my x-intercepts or solutions are at negative 2 and 5, so I'll just mark values out that far. There's my negative 2, there's my 5, and my a value was a negative number. Okay, whether you look at the original equation or you just look at the a, and since it's negative, it's a downward parabola. There you go. There's the first one. There's problem number 2, exact same idea. Go ahead and pause it, and I'll start working through behind you. Okay, I'm already starting to work here. I'm going to cancel off to set it equal to 0, get rid of that 7. Negative 17 and 7 is going to be negative 24. So our actual equation we're going to use is negative x squared plus 10x minus 24 equals 0. So now we've done our setting equal to 0 for both the quadratic formula and the solving. Don't even worry about using that anymore. And now I'm going to look for a GCF, and it's anything in front of the x squared I want to try and get rid of, so it's just the negative or the negative 1. I'm just going to flip my signs. X squared minus 10x plus 24. And now that brings me to my trinomial factoring method. Can I figure out a pair of numbers that will add to the negative 10 while multiplying to a 24? 6 and 4 are the numbers that come to mind. And since they're adding to a negative 10, I'll just make them both negative numbers, and that'll work out. again, we could bring down that -1 as the GCF out front, but it really doesn't matter. We're just focusing on our x's. And when we set each to 0 and solve, we'll add over the -6, it becomes positive. We'll also add over that 4 to cancel it. It'll also become positive when we solve it. And there's our two solutions. Moving on, pull out your ABC. A is -1. B is 10. C is -24. I'm pulling them out of this right over here, the equation once it's solved for 0. Notice your C will not be correct if you started with the original. You'll have the wrong C value of -17. You got to solve it for 0, so you can see that it's actually -24. All right, now we just plug it in. Negative B is -10. Plus or minus the square root of 10 squared minus 4 times A, our -1, times C, our -24, all over 2 times A, and let's do our radical work. We're just going down our list. We set it equal to 0, we pulled out ABC, we plugged into the formula. Now we're going to solve into that radical. 10 squared. 100. We got 3 negatives. 1, 2, pair of them cancels. We're left with a single negative, which is going to go under here. 4 times 24 is 96. So we end up with 100 minus 96 is 4. So it's really just square root of 4. So we'll have -10 plus or minus the square root of 4. 2 times -1 is -2. And there we go. We can get to our two final solutions. We're going to have our x equals, and we're going to split it right here. We've got -10 plus, and we're going to take the square root of 4, which is 2. And then we've got -10 minus. Square root of 4 is still 2. And there we go. -10 plus 2 is -8. Over -2, the negatives cancel, and we get that final 4. There's our first one. First solution matches. -10 and -2, -12, divided by -2. And there's our second solution. Take it over to here. And my solutions are at 4 and 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So at 4, at 6 are my two intercepts. My A was negative. I bet you guys see a pattern. I keep throwing negatives in to see if you can get those and make sure everything is done correctly with negatives, which ends up giving us parabolas that point downward over and over and over. There you go. It's not very well sketched, is it? It should go through that intercept. There you go. Good luck on the quiz tomorrow, guys.